Move More, Eat Less, Not Another New Diet, Just a Return to Normal Living, written by C.D. Evans, May 2026. Why this book exists. This book began with a simple question. How did a nation that once lived on modest portions, daily movement, and home-cooked meals become a nation struggling with obesity, overeating, and confusion about health? The answer is not found in a single moment, a single food, or a single industry. It is found in a timeline. It is found in a series of changes that reshaped the way people eat, move, and think about their bodies. For more than a century, Americans lived in an environment that supported natural health. Portions were small. Movement was unavoidable. Food was prepared at home. Even as sugar, soda, and fast food entered the culture, people remained relatively healthy because the environment still encouraged balance. That balance disappeared gradually, then suddenly. The rise of supersizing, convenience culture, sedentary lifestyles, and emotional stress created a world that no longer aligned with the body's natural design. This book is not a diet. It is not a program. It is not a set of rules. It is a clear explanation of how the modern world changed, how those changes affected the body, and why so many people struggle with weight despite their best intentions. It is a guide to understanding the forces that shape eating habits, movement patterns, and emotional responses. It is a reminder that the body has not changed, even though the environment has. The purpose of this book is to remove confusion. It is to show that sustainable health does not require complexity, restriction, or perfection. It requires awareness, portion control, and daily movement. It requires habits that align with the body's natural needs. It requires understanding the history that led to the present, so the reader can make informed choices about the future. This book exists because people deserve clarity. They deserve to understand why they struggle, why diets fail, and why the modern world makes healthy living difficult. They deserve a path that is simple, realistic, and sustainable. They deserve to know that the solution has always been within reach. The chapters that follow tell the story of how America changed, how the body responded, and how anyone can return to balance in a world that encourages excess. This book is not about blame. It is about understanding. It is about reclaiming control. It is about returning to the principles that supported health long before the modern world complicated them. Introduction. How America Changed and Why It Matters. This book tells the story of how America moved from a nation of modest portions, daily movement, and home-cooked meals to a nation struggling with obesity, overeating, and confusion about health. It is not a story of personal failure. It is a story of environmental change. It is a story of how the world around us shifted faster than the human body could adapt. For most of the 20th century, Americans lived in a world that supported natural health. People walked more, moved more, and ate smaller portions. Meals were prepared at home. Children played outside. Adults performed physical tasks as part of daily life. Even as sugar, soda, and fast food entered the culture, the environment still encouraged balance. The body could handle occasional indulgence because the rest of life supported moderation. That balance began to disappear in the late 20th century. Portion sizes increased. Fast food chains expanded aggressively. Soda consumption rose sharply. Convenience replaced preparation. Daily movement declined as technology reduced the need for physical effort. The environment shifted from one that supported health to one that encouraged excess. The body did not change, but the world around it did. As people gained weight, industries emerged to offer solutions. Diet programs, weight loss clinics, meal replacement products, and fitness memberships promised transformation. Some of these programs helped people temporarily, but most did not address the underlying environment. They offered structure without sustainability. They created cycles of restriction and regain. They added complexity to a problem that required simplicity. The purpose of this book is to explain how these changes occurred and why they matter. It is to show that the struggle with weight is not a moral issue. It is not a lack of discipline or willpower. It is the predictable outcome of living in a world that encourages overeating, emotional eating, and inactivity. It is the result of habits shaped by an environment that no longer aligns with the body's natural design. This book will take the reader through the history of sugar, soda, candy, fast food, supersizing, and convenience culture. It will examine the rise of the diet industry, the fitness industry, and the psychology of overeating. It will show how eating disorders developed in a world of extremes. It will reveal how the search for solutions became a business rather than a path to balance. Most importantly, this book will present the simple truth that has remained unchanged throughout history. The body thrives on daily movement and portion control. These principles supported health long before the modern world complicated them, and they remain effective today. They do not require programs, products, or perfection. They require awareness, consistency, and balance. The chapters that follow will show how America changed, how the body responded, and how anyone can return to balance in a world that encourages excess. This book is not about blame. It is about understanding. It is about clarity. It is about reclaiming control in an environment that makes healthy living difficult. It is about returning to the principles that supported health for generations. Chapter 1: Dr. John Harvey Kellogg, the father of American health. The American health movement did not begin in a gym, a diet book, or a television studio. It began in Battle Creek, Michigan, under the direction of a physician whose name still carries weight more than 100 years later. Dr. John Harvey Kellogg was not simply a doctor. He was a visionary who believed that health was the result of daily habits, simple food, clean living, and natural movement. His ideas were decades ahead of their time, and they shaped the foundation of what would eventually become the modern wellness industry. Dr. Kellogg operated the Battle Creek Sanitarium, a facility that combined medical treatment, nutrition, exercise, and lifestyle education. It was not a hospital in the traditional sense. It was a place where people came to learn how to live. Wealthy patients traveled from across the country to Michigan because they believed that Dr. Kellogg could restore their health through a combination of fresh air, walking, hydrotherapy, and simple meals. His approach was based on the belief that the human body functioned best when it was treated with respect and given the opportunity to heal itself. The meals served at the sanitarium were intentionally plain. Dr. Kellogg believed that overeating and overstimulation were the root causes of many health problems. He promoted whole grains, fruits, vegetables, and foods that were easy to digest. He discouraged heavy meats, fried foods, and anything that overwhelmed the digestive system. His philosophy was simple: eat real food, eat modest portions, and allow the body to work as it was designed. It was within this environment that cereal was born. Dr. Kellogg experimented with grains in an attempt to create a healthy, convenient breakfast that would support digestion rather than burden it. The result was a flaked grain product that would eventually evolve into the breakfast cereals known today. At the time, cereal was not a sugary snack. It was a health food created by a physician who wanted to improve the lives of his patients. The Battle Creek Sanitarium became famous not only for its treatments, but also for its disciplined lifestyle. Patients walked daily. They breathed fresh Michigan air. They participated in calisthenics, stretching, and light exercise. Dr. Kellogg believed that movement was essential for health, and he encouraged his patients to remain active throughout the day. His approach was not extreme. It was practical, sustainable, and rooted in the idea that the human body was designed to move. Michigan became the birthplace of American wellness because of Dr. Kellogg's influence. His ideas spread far beyond Battle Creek. Newspapers wrote about his methods. Visitors returned home and shared what they had learned. Other health facilities attempted to copy his model. The concept of healthy living began to take shape in the American mind, and it started with a doctor who believed that simple habits could prevent disease. Dr. Kellogg's work created the foundation for the health industry that would follow. His emphasis on natural food, daily movement, and lifestyle discipline set the stage for future generations. Although the modern world has drifted far from his original principles, the core of his message remains relevant. Health does not require complexity. It requires consistency. The story of American health begins with Dr. John Harvey Kellogg because he was the first to organize, promote, and teach a complete lifestyle system. He believed that health was not a product to be purchased, but a practice to be lived. His legacy is the starting point for understanding how America once pursued wellness with simplicity and intention, long before the industries of gyms, diets, and processed foods reshaped the nation. Chapter 2: Charles William Post and the Birth of Mass Market Health. The American health movement did not remain confined to the walls of the Battle Creek Sanitarium. While Dr. John Harvey Kellogg created the philosophy, it was another man who recognized the commercial potential of health food. That man was Charles William Post. His influence transformed health from a medical lifestyle into a national consumer industry. If Dr. Kellogg was the father of American wellness, then C.W. Post was the architect of American health marketing. Post arrived in Battle Creek as a patient, not a visionary. He suffered from chronic pain, digestive issues, and exhaustion. Like many who traveled to the sanitarium, he hoped that Dr. Kellogg's methods would restore his health. What he discovered was not only relief, but opportunity. Post observed the sanitarium's routines, the simple meals, and the grain-based foods that Kellogg served to his patients. He recognized that these foods could be produced on a larger scale and sold to the public. Where Kellogg saw health, Post saw business. After leaving the sanitarium, Post began experimenting with grain-based products in his own kitchen. His first major success was Postum, a roasted grain beverage marketed as a caffeine-free alternative to coffee. Postum was not simply a drink, it was a promise. It claimed to calm the nerves, improve digestion, and support overall health. Post understood something that Kellogg did not fully embrace. Americans were willing to buy health if it was packaged, advertised, and convenient. Post's next creation was Grape Nuts, a cereal made from baked and crushed wheat and barley. Despite the name, it contained neither grapes nor nuts. The name was chosen because it sounded wholesome and nutritious. Post promoted grape nuts as a food that could strengthen the body, improve stamina, and support digestion. He advertised it aggressively, using newspapers, magazines, and billboards. His marketing campaigns were bold, confident, and persuasive. They promised results, energy, and vitality. This was the beginning of mass-market health food in America. Post understood that people wanted simple solutions. They wanted products that fit into their daily routines. They wanted to believe that health could be purchased in a box. His success proved that the public was ready for a new kind of food industry, one that blended nutrition with convenience and marketing. Battle Creek transformed almost overnight. What began as a quiet town built around Dr. Kellogg's sanitarium became the center of a booming cereal industry. Dozens of companies emerged, each trying to replicate the success of Post and Kellogg. Factories were built, workers were hired, advertisements spread across the country. Battle Creek, Michigan became known as Cereal City, a symbol of America's growing fascination with packaged health. Post's influence extended far beyond cereal. He pioneered the idea that food could be sold not only for taste, but for function. He understood that Americans were willing to trust claims of improved health, increased energy, and better digestion. His marketing shaped the way future companies would promote their products. The modern health food aisle, filled with cereals, bars, shakes, and supplements, can trace its origins back to Post's early strategies. However, Post's success also marked the beginning of a shift in American eating habits. As packaged foods became more common, home-cooked meals began to decline. Convenience replaced preparation. Marketing replaced tradition. People began to rely on products rather than practices. The idea of health became something that could be purchased rather than lived. This shift did not immediately lead to obesity. In the early 20th century, portions remained small, physical activity remained high, and sugar consumption, although increasing, had not yet reached modern levels. But the foundation was being laid. The idea that food could be engineered, packaged, and sold as a solution to health problems would eventually evolve into the diet industry, the supplement industry, and the processed food industry. Charles William Post did not intend to create these future industries. He intended to create products that people would buy. But his influence shaped the direction of American food culture. He demonstrated that health could be commercialized, advertised, and scaled. He proved that convenience could be profitable. He showed that the public would respond to promises of better living through packaged food. The story of Post is essential to understanding how America moved from simple, natural eating to a culture dominated by convenience and marketing. His work represents the turning point between Dr. Kellogg's medical philosophy and the modern health industry. It marks the moment when health became a product, and when the American public began to look for solutions outside of their own habits. C.W. Post did not. C.W. Post did not invent health food. He invented the business of health food. His legacy is the beginning of mass-market wellness, the rise of packaged nutrition, and the foundation of the industries that would shape American eating for the next century. His story is the second chapter in the history of how America learned to buy health instead of practicing it. Chapter 3: Soda Pop, Candy, and the Rise of American Sugar Addiction. The story of American obesity does not begin in the 1980s. It does not begin with supersizing, fast food chains, or modern convenience culture. The true beginning can be traced back to the late 19th century, when sugar, soda, and candy became mass-produced for the first time. These products did not immediately create an obesity epidemic, but they established the habits, tastes, and expectations that would eventually reshape the nation's health. The first major shift occurred in 1876, when Charles Hires introduced Hires Root Tea at the Philadelphia Centennial Exposition. It was originally marketed as a medicinal drink, made from herbs and roots used by Native Americans and early settlers. It was not carbonated, and it was not considered a treat. It was promoted as a health beverage. Over time, Hires added carbonation and sugar, transforming the drink into what became known as root beer. This was the first American soda, and it marked the beginning of a new category of sweet, convenient beverages. The next major development came in 1885 with the creation of Dr. Pepper in Waco, Texas. Unlike root beer, Dr. Pepper was not based on traditional herbal formulas. It was a flavored chemical drink designed to taste exciting and modern. It was marketed as a brain tonic and an energy booster. This was the first time Americans were encouraged to drink something sweet not for health, but for stimulation and pleasure. In 1886, Coca-Cola entered the market. Its original formula contained cocaine from coca leaves and caffeine from cola nuts, combined with sugar to create a stimulating beverage unlike anything Americans had tasted before. Cocaine was removed from the formula by 1904, but caffeine remained and sugar levels increased. Coca-Cola became a national sensation, not because it was healthy, but because it was addictive. It offered energy, sweetness, and novelty in a single bottle. During the same period, the candy industry exploded. Sugar became cheap, abundant, and easy to transport. Factories began producing sweets on a massive scale. In 1896, the Tootsie Roll became the first mass-produced, shelf-stable candy. It was inexpensive, portable, and available everywhere. In 1897, Jell-O was introduced, offering a new kind of dessert that combined sugar, artificial flavor, and convenience. These products were not occasional treats. They were designed to be eaten daily. By the early 20th century, sugar had become a central part of the American diet. Candy stores appeared in every town. Soda fountains became social hubs. Children grew up with sweets as a normal part of life. Adults consumed sugary beverages throughout the day. The culture shifted from occasional indulgence to regular consumption. The foundation of America's future weight problems was being built, even though the effects would not be fully seen for decades. In 1919, the next major shift occurred when Roy Allen and Frank Wright opened the first A&W root beer stand in California. This was the birth of fast food in the United States. A&W combined soda with quick, inexpensive meals such as burgers, fries, and hot dogs. It was the first time Americans could walk up, order food, and receive it instantly. The pairing of soda and fast food created a powerful combination of sugar, salt, and convenience. It was the beginning of the convenience diet, long before the term existed. Despite these developments, America did not become obese in the early 20th century. Portions remained small. Meals were still cooked at home. Physical activity was high. Children played outside. Adults worked physically demanding jobs. Fast food was a novelty, not a routine. Soda was sold in small bottles, not oversized cups. Candy bars were modest in size. The culture still valued moderation, even as sugar became more available. However, the habits formed during this period would shape the decades to come. Americans developed a taste for sweetness. They became accustomed to convenience. They learned to associate food with speed, pleasure, and stimulation. These habits would remain dormant until the environment changed, when portion sizes increased, when fast food chains multiplied, and when convenience culture took over in the 1980s. The foundation laid in the late 19th and early 20th centuries would finally reveal its consequences. The rise of soda, candy, and early fast food is not the story of an obesity epidemic. It is the story of how America learned to crave sugar, expect convenience, and accept processed food as normal. It is the story of how the nation's palate was shaped long before the modern health crisis began. Understanding this history is essential because it explains why later generations struggled with weight even when they believed they were eating normally. The decades that followed would show that Americans remained healthy as long as portions stayed reasonable and physical activity remained high. The real crisis would not emerge until the culture shifted away from moderation. But the seeds were planted here in the era of root beer, Coca-Cola, Dr. Pepper, Tootsie Rolls, Jell-O, and the first fast food stand. This chapter marks the beginning of America's long journey toward the modern obesity problem, a journey that would accelerate dramatically in the decades ahead. Chapter 4. Jack LaLanne, the godfather of fitness. By the middle of the 20th century, America had already experienced the rise of sugar, soda, candy, and early fast food. Yet the nation remained healthy, portions were still modest, meals were still cooked at home, children played outside from morning until night, adults walked, worked, and moved naturally throughout the day. Even with the growing availability of processed foods, the culture still valued moderation. It was during this period that a new voice emerged, one that would shape the future of American fitness. That voice belonged to Jack LaLanne. Jack LaLanne was born in 1914, long before the modern fitness industry existed. He grew up in an era when exercise was not a hobby, a trend, or a commercial product. It was simply part of life. People walked to work, performed physical labor, and lived without the conveniences that would later reduce daily movement. LaLanne understood the value of physical activity because he lived in a world where movement was unavoidable. In the 1930s, LaLanne discovered weight training and nutrition. At the time, lifting weights was considered unusual, even dangerous. Many doctors believed that strength training would damage the heart or reduce flexibility. LaLanne rejected these ideas. He believed that the human body was designed to move, lift, stretch, and grow stronger. He believed that exercise was essential for health, not optional. His ideas were decades ahead of their time. LaLanne opened one of the first modern gyms in the United States in 1936. It was not a commercial chain, and it did not rely on contracts or sales tactics. It was a place where people could learn to strengthen their bodies through simple, consistent exercise. LaLanne taught his clients to lift weights, stretch, and eat real food. He promoted a lifestyle based on discipline, moderation, and daily movement. His message was clear: health was earned through effort, not purchased through products. In the 1950s, LaLanne brought his message to a national audience through The Jack LaLanne Show, one of the first fitness programs on television. He demonstrated exercises that required no equipment, no gym membership, and no special training. He encouraged viewers to move their bodies, eat whole foods, and avoid sugar. His tone was direct, practical, and encouraging. He spoke to the average American, not to athletes or bodybuilders. His goal was to make fitness accessible to everyone. LaLanne's influence extended far beyond his television show. He wrote books, opened gyms, and performed public feats of strength to demonstrate the power of disciplined living. He swam handcuffed and towed boats while handcuffed. He completed endurance challenges well into his later years. He lived his message, proving that consistent movement and simple eating could support a long, healthy life. LaLanne lived to the age of 96, a testament to the principles he taught. What made LaLanne unique was not his strength or his endurance. It was his philosophy. He believed that health was simple. He believed that people should eat real food, avoid excess sugar, and move their bodies every day. He believed that portion control was essential long before the term became common. He believed that fitness was not a trend, but a lifestyle. His message was not complicated, and it did not require expensive equipment or memberships. It required discipline and consistency. LaLanne's era was the last period in American history when the culture naturally supported health. Families ate meals together. Portions were reasonable. Fast food existed, but it was not a daily habit. Soda was sold in small bottles. Candy was a treat, not a routine. Children played outside without supervision. Adults performed physical tasks throughout the day. The environment supported the body rather than working against it. LaLanne's message resonated because it matched the culture of the time. Americans were already living in a way that aligned with his principles. His work did not fight against the environment. It reinforced it. He encouraged people to continue doing what their bodies were designed to do: move, eat modestly, and live simply. However, the world around him was beginning to change. Processed foods were becoming more common. Convenience was becoming more attractive. Technology was beginning to reduce daily movement. The habits that had kept Americans healthy for generations were slowly fading. Lalanne's message remained the same, but the culture around him was shifting toward a future that would challenge everything he believed. Jack LaLanne represents the final chapter of America's natural health era. He stands at the intersection between the simple living of the early 20th century and the commercial fitness boom that would follow. His work laid the foundation for the modern fitness industry, but his message was rooted in principles that predated that industry for decades. He taught that health was simple, that movement was essential, and that portion control was the key to maintaining a healthy body. LaLanne's legacy is not the gyms he opened or the shows he hosted. It is the philosophy he lived. He demonstrated that health does not require complexity, equipment, or trends. It requires consistency, moderation, and daily effort. His life serves as a reminder that the human body thrives when it is treated with respect and given what it needs, not what the modern world encourages it to consume. Jack LaLanne was the godfather of fitness because he understood the truth long before the world needed to hear it. His message would become even more important in the decades that followed, as America entered an era of convenience, excess, and declining physical activity. The next chapters will show how the environment changed, how the fitness industry evolved, and how the nation moved from natural health to commercial health, and eventually to widespread obesity. LaLanne stands as the bridge between these worlds, a symbol of what health once was and what it can still be. Chapter 5. Vic Tanny and the Birth of the Modern Gym. By the early 1960s, America was still a nation built on natural movement and modest eating. Families cooked meals at home. Portions remained reasonable. In those days, childhood was largely outdoors: bikes, sidewalks, parks, and open spaces. Adults walked, worked, and lived in a world that required physical effort. Even with the rise of soda, candy, and early fast food, the culture still supported moderation. It was during this period that the fitness world began to shift from personal discipline to commercial opportunity. At the center of this shift was Vic Tanny. Vic Tanny was a bodybuilder before bodybuilding was mainstream. He trained in an era when weightlifting was still considered unusual, and when gyms were dark, dusty rooms filled with iron plates and serious lifters. These early gyms were not designed for the average person. They were intimidating, unpolished, and focused entirely on strength. Tanny saw something different. He believed that fitness could be brought to the general public, not just to athletes and bodybuilders. He believed that gyms could be clean, bright, and welcoming. In the 1940s and 1950s, Tanny began opening gyms that looked nothing like the weight rooms of the past. His facilities had mirrors, chrome equipment, bright lighting, and organized spaces. They were designed to feel modern and professional. Tanny understood that people were more likely to exercise in an environment that felt safe, clean, and inviting. He created the first gyms that resembled the commercial fitness centers seen today. Tanny also introduced a new concept that would shape the industry for decades: the membership contract. Before Tanny, gyms operated on simple fees or pay-as-you-go models. Tanny realized that predictable revenue was essential for expansion. He created long-term membership agreements that required customers to commit financially, regardless of how often they attended. This model allowed him to open more locations, hire staff, and invest in equipment. It also created a new business strategy that would become standard across the fitness industry. By the 1960s, Vic Tanny had built the first national gym chain in the United States. His facilities appeared in major cities and suburban areas. They attracted men and women, young adults and older adults, beginners, and experienced lifters. Tanny marketed fitness as a lifestyle, not a hobby. He promoted the idea that regular exercise was essential for health and appearance. His message resonated with a generation that was beginning to value physical fitness as part of modern living. Tanny's gyms were revolutionary because they made fitness accessible. They removed the intimidation of old-style weight rooms. They offered structured programs, group classes, and equipment that was easy to use. They created a social environment where people could exercise together. For the first time, fitness was not limited to athletes or dedicated enthusiasts. It was available to anyone who was willing to join. However, Tanny's success also revealed the challenges of commercial fitness. Membership contracts encouraged people to sign up, but they did not guarantee participation. Many customers paid for memberships they rarely used. This pattern would become a defining feature of the fitness industry. Gyms relied on the fact that most members would not attend regularly. The business model depended on selling more memberships than the facility could physically support. This approach created a cycle in which people paid for the idea of fitness rather than the practice of it. Despite these challenges, Tanny's influence was undeniable. He created the blueprint for the modern gym. He demonstrated that fitness could be marketed, sold, and scaled. He showed that people were willing to invest in their health even if they struggled to maintain consistent habits. His work laid the foundation for the fitness boom that would follow in the 1970s and 1980s. Tanny's era was also the last period before the cultural shift that would lead to widespread obesity. Portions were still modest, fast food was still occasional, soda was still sold in small bottles. Daily life happened outside. Adults still moved naturally throughout the day. The environment supported health, even as commercial fitness began to grow. Tanny's gyms fit into a culture that still valued moderation and daily activity. The next major shift would come from a figure who transformed fitness from a lifestyle into a cultural phenomenon. That figure was Arnold Schwarzenegger. His rise in the late 1970s and 1980s would change the way America viewed the body, the gym, and the meaning of physical fitness. He would take the foundation built by Jack LaLanne and Vic Tanny and elevate it to a level that no one had imagined. Vic Tanny represents the moment when fitness became an industry. He stands between the natural health era of Jack LaLanne and the Hollywood-driven fitness explosion that would follow. His work created the structure, the business model, and the environment that allowed the modern gym to exist. He showed that fitness could be commercialized, and he set the stage for the next chapter in America's evolving relationship with health. Tanny's legacy is not only the gyms he built, but the idea that fitness could be brought to the masses. He believed that everyone deserved access to exercise, and he created the first system that made it possible. His influence continues today in every commercial gym, every membership contract, and every fitness chain that traces its roots back to his vision. He was the architect of the modern gym, and his work shaped the future of American fitness. Chapter 6: Arnold Schwarzenegger and the Hollywood Fitness Explosion. By the late 1970s, the American fitness landscape had already begun to change. Jack LaLanne had introduced the nation to simple movement and real food. Vic Tanny created the first commercial gym chain and the first membership contracts. Fitness was no longer a private discipline. It was becoming a business, a lifestyle, and a cultural trend. Yet it was still limited in scope. Most Americans did not lift weights. Most did not join gyms. Most did not view the body as something to sculpt. That would change with the arrival of Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold did not simply enter the fitness world. He transformed it. Born in Austria in 1947, he grew up in a culture that valued strength, discipline, and physical development. He discovered bodybuilding as a teenager and pursued it with relentless focus. By the time he arrived in the United States in 1968, he had already won major European titles. He brought with him a level of size, symmetry, and muscularity that Americans had never seen before. He was not merely strong. He was monumental. In 1970, Arnold won his first Mr. Olympia title. He would go on to win the competition 7 times, becoming the most famous bodybuilder in the world. His presence on stage was commanding. His physique was unmatched. His confidence was unmistakable. He represented a new ideal of physical perfection, one that combined size, aesthetics, and charisma. He was not simply a champion. He was a symbol. The turning point came in 1977 with the release of Pumping Iron. Although often referred to as his first movie, it was not a traditional acting role. It was a documentary. Arnold was not playing a character. He was simply being himself. He trained, posed, competed, and spoke openly about his philosophy. The film introduced bodybuilding to mainstream America. It showed the discipline, the intensity, and the culture of the sport. It also revealed Arnold's personality, which was confident, humorous, and larger than life. Pumping Iron did more than showcase bodybuilding. It made it appealing. It made it exciting. It made it cool. For the first time, Average Americans saw weightlifting as something they might want to try. Gyms began to attract new members. Young men wanted to build muscle. Young women wanted to tone their bodies. The fitness industry began to expand rapidly. Arnold had become the face of a movement. His influence grew even larger when he transitioned into acting. In 1982, he starred in Conan the Barbarian, a film that relied more on his physical presence than on traditional acting skill. He was massive, imposing, and unforgettable. Audiences did not care that he was not a trained actor. His size was the performance. His physique was the character. He represented strength in its most visible form. In 1984, Arnold starred in The Terminator, a role that cemented his status as a global icon. The film did not require emotional depth or dramatic range. It required a body that looked unstoppable. Arnold delivered exactly that. His presence on screen was powerful, mechanical, and intimidating. He became the embodiment of physical dominance. Hollywood embraced him, and audiences followed. Throughout the 1980s, Arnold's films shaped the cultural ideal of the male body. Muscles became fashionable, strength became desirable, gyms became mainstream, weightlifting became a normal part of American life. The fitness industry exploded. New gym chains have opened. Equipment companies thrived. Magazines promoted training routines, supplements, and diets. The body became a project, a goal, and a statement. Arnold's influence extended beyond entertainment. He promoted fitness as a lifestyle. He encouraged people to train consistently, eat properly, and pursue physical excellence. He represented discipline, ambition, and transformation. His message resonated with a generation that was beginning to value appearance, performance, and self-improvement. He became the symbol of what the human body could achieve through effort and dedication. Yet Arnold's rise also highlighted a growing divide in American culture. While he represented strength, discipline, and physical development, the nation was beginning to move in the opposite direction. Portions were increasing, fast food was expanding, soda sizes were growing, convenience was replacing effort, daily movement was declining. The environment that had once supported natural health was disappearing. Arnold's era was the last moment when fitness and culture were aligned. His message matched the aspirations of the time, but it did not match the direction the nation was heading. As gyms expanded, so did fast food chains. As fitness magazines promoted lean bodies, portion sizes grew. As Hollywood celebrated muscular heroes, the average American became less active. The contrast between the fitness ideal and the national reality grew wider each year. Arnold Schwarzenegger represents the peak of the fitness movement before the obesity crisis began. He stands at the intersection of bodybuilding, Hollywood, and commercial fitness. He transformed the way America viewed the body. He made muscles mainstream. He made gyms popular. He made fitness a cultural force. His influence shaped the industry that would attempt to counter the rising tide of obesity in the decades that followed. Arnold's legacy is not only his physique or his films. It is the cultural shift he created. He showed that the body could be transformed through discipline and effort. He inspired millions to pursue fitness. He elevated the gym from a niche environment to a national institution. His rise marks the final chapter of America's fitness boom before the environment changed and the obesity epidemic began. The next chapter will examine that shift. It will show how the 1980s transformed food, portions, convenience, and daily life. It will reveal how the foundation built by sugar, soda, candy, and early fast food finally collided with the modern world. Arnold represents the peak of physical aspiration. The decades that followed would reveal the consequences of a culture that moved away from moderation and daily movement. Chapter 7. The 1980s Obesity Boom, Supersizing, Convenience, and the Decline of Daily Movement. By the end of the 1970s, America had experienced nearly a century of rising sugar consumption, the birth of soda, the mass production of candy, and the creation of fast food. Yet the nation remained relatively healthy. Portions were still modest. Meals were still cooked at home. The outdoors remained the main backdrop of everyday life. Adults still moved naturally throughout the day. Even with the growing availability of processed foods, the culture still valued moderation. The environment supported health, even as convenience slowly increased. This balance would not survive the next decade. The 1980s marked a dramatic shift in American eating habits, portion sizes, and daily movement. It was the decade when fast food chains expanded aggressively, when soda sizes increased, when convenience replaced preparation, and when the culture embraced speed over quality. It was the decade when the foundation laid by sugar, soda, and early fast food finally collided with a new environment. The result was the beginning of widespread obesity in the United States. Fast food chains existed for decades. A&W opened in 1919. White Castle appeared in the 1920s. McDonald's, Burger King, and Dairy Queen expanded in the 1950s and 1960s. Wendy's arrived in the 1970s. These chains were familiar, but they were not yet dominant. They offered quick meals, but they did not replace home cooking. Portions were small. Prices were low. Fast food was a treat, not a routine. It was something families enjoyed occasionally, not something they relied on daily. In the 1980s, this changed. Fast food chains entered a period of aggressive expansion and competition. They fought for customers by offering larger portions, new menu items, and promotional deals. The goal was simple: to sell more food by offering more food. The concept of supersizing emerged, encouraging customers to upgrade their meals for a small additional cost. A larger drink, a larger order of fries, and a larger burger became the new normal. What had once been a treat became a habit. Portion sizes increased dramatically. A small soda became a medium became a large drink. A large became an extra large. French fry portions doubled. Burgers grew in size and calorie content. Combo meals encouraged customers to purchase more food than they needed. The industry shifted from selling meals to selling value, and value was measured in quantity, not quality. Americans were encouraged to eat more, not because they were hungry, but because it was inexpensive and convenient. The rise of convenience culture accelerated this shift. Microwaves have become common in households. Frozen meals became popular. Snack foods became more abundant. Grocery stores expanded their processed food sections. Families cooked less often. Daily life shifted indoors as cable TV and early gaming systems became central to home entertainment. Adults spent more time sitting. Daily movement declined as technology reduced the need for physical effort. The environment was no longer supporting natural health. It encouraged inactivity. Soda consumption increased sharply. Fountain drinks became larger. Unlimited refills became standard. Fast food chains promoted soda as the default beverage. Convenience stores sold oversized cups that held far more liquid than the human body needed. Sugar intake rose to unprecedented levels. What had once been a small treat became a daily habit. The combination of larger portions, increased sugar, and reduced movement created conditions for rapid weight gain. Marketing played a significant role in this transformation. Fast food chains targeted children with toys, mascots, and colorful packaging. They targeted adults with convenience, speed, and low prices. They promoted the idea that eating out was easier, faster, and more enjoyable than cooking at home. Eating out also eliminated the work that came with home-cooked meals. No grocery shopping, no pots or pans to scrub, no dishes to wash. Removing the small but steady movements that used to be part of everyday life. They encouraged customers to buy more food than they needed. The culture shifted from moderation to excess, from home cooking to fast food, and from natural movement to sedentary living. The fitness boom of the 1980s, driven by figures like Arnold Schwarzenegger, could not counteract these changes. Gyms expanded, but so did fast food chains. Fitness magazines promoted lean bodies, but portion sizes grew. Exercise became a trend, but convenience became a lifestyle. The contrast between the fitness ideal and the national reality grew wider each year. The environment was no longer aligned with health. It was aligned with consumption. The 1980s represent the moment when America became a nation of excess. It was the decade when the habits formed in the late 19th and early 20th centuries finally revealed their consequences. Sugar, soda, candy, and fast food had created the taste for sweetness and convenience. The 1980s provided the portions, the marketing, and the environment that turned those tastes into daily behavior. The result was the beginning of widespread obesity. This chapter marks the turning point in America's health history. It is the moment when the environment shifted decisively away from moderation and daily movement. It is the moment when fast food chains embraced supersizing, when soda became oversized, and when convenience replaced preparation. It is the moment when the nation moved from occasional indulgence to constant consumption. The decades that followed would only intensify these trends. Understanding the 1980s is essential because it explains why the fitness boom could not prevent the obesity crisis. It explains why diets, gym memberships, and home exercise equipment became so popular in the decades that followed. It explains why Americans struggled with weight even when they believed they were eating normally. The environment had changed, and the body responded accordingly. The next chapters will examine the industries that emerged in response to this crisis. They will show how gym memberships, home gym equipment, and diet programs attempted to solve a problem that was created by the environment, not by individual failure. They will reveal how the nation moved from natural health to commercial health, and how the search for solutions became a business of its own. Chapter 8. The Gym Membership Lifestyle: Cost, Commitment, and the Illusion of Fitness. The 1980s marked the beginning of widespread obesity in the United States. Portion sizes increased, fast food chains expanded aggressively, soda consumption rose sharply, and daily movement declined. As Americans gained weight, the fitness industry responded with a new promise: join a gym, pay a monthly fee, and regain control of your health. This promise was appealing, but it was also misleading. Gym memberships offered access, not results. They offered opportunity, not discipline. They offered the idea of fitness, not the practice of it. The modern gym membership traces its roots to the work of Vic Tanny, who introduced long-term contracts and commercial fitness centers in the mid-20th century. By the 1980s, this model had become the foundation of the fitness industry. Gyms expanded rapidly, offering bright facilities, modern equipment, and a wide range of classes. They marketed themselves as the solution to weight gain, stress, and declining health. They promised transformation, confidence, and a better life. However, the gym membership model relied on a simple truth: most people would not attend regularly. Gyms sold far more memberships than their facilities could physically support. They depended on customers who paid monthly fees but rarely used the equipment. This business model allowed gyms to expand, but it also created a cycle in which people paid for fitness without practicing it. The industry profited from inactivity. Gym membership is not a 20-minute activity. It is a lifestyle. It requires time, energy, planning, and consistency. It requires travel, preparation, and routine. It requires a commitment that extends beyond the walls of the facility. For people who live a fitness lifestyle, a gym membership is valuable. For everyone else, it becomes an expense that produces guilt rather than results. And the expense was never just the monthly fee. The cost of gym memberships increased as facilities expanded. Monthly dues were only the beginning. There were enrollment fees, annual fees, cancellation fees, locker fees, and class fees. Gas money to drive back and forth. Gym clothes to fit in. Shoes that wore out quickly. Gear like gloves, wraps, and braces. Smoothies, protein shakes, electrolyte drinks, and supplements pushed at the front counter. Even the small things, a lock for the locker, a gym bag, replacement earbuds, added up. The financial drain was like a dripping faucet. Small drops that didn't seem like much until the water bill arrived. What looked like a $30 membership often became a $120 to $150 monthly lifestyle. Yet the truth remained unchanged. Fitness is not purchased. It is practiced. Gym memberships do not create discipline. They do not create consistency. They do not create portion control. It provides access to equipment, but it does not provide the habits required to use that equipment effectively. Many people joined gyms with enthusiasm, only to stop attending within weeks. Their muscles were sore, their routines were unrealistic, and their motivation faded. But the payments continued. The gym owners knew this, which is why they oversold memberships far beyond their building capacity. They counted on people quitting while still paying. The rise of gym culture in the 1980s coincided with the rise of fast food, supersizing, and convenience. Americans were encouraged to eat more, move less, and rely on quick solutions. The gym became one of those solutions. It offered a way to feel productive without addressing the underlying habits that caused weight gain. It allowed people to believe that they were taking action even when their daily routines remained unchanged. The fitness industry also promoted unrealistic expectations. Advertisements featured lean, muscular bodies that represented the peak of physical development, and they implied that these results could be achieved quickly. The message was simple: join today, transform tomorrow. Gym marketing suggested that dramatic change was just weeks away, not months or years of discipline. In reality, such results require portion control, consistency, and long-term effort. The industry sold the image, not the process. It sold the outcome, not the lifestyle. It sold speed, not the truth. For many people, the gym became a place of frustration. They paid monthly fees, attempted to follow routines, and struggled to maintain consistency. They compared themselves to others who appeared more experienced or more confident. They felt overwhelmed by equipment, intimidated by the environment, or discouraged by slow progress. The gym did not solve their problems. It highlighted them. The gym membership lifestyle works only for those who fully embrace it. It requires a level of commitment that most people cannot sustain while balancing work, family, stress, and daily responsibilities. It requires a mindset that views fitness as a central part of life, not an occasional activity. For the majority of Americans, the gym became another expense in a world filled with convenience, excess, and declining health. The rise of gym memberships in the 1980s and beyond reflects a larger cultural shift. As the environment became less supportive of natural health, people sought solutions outside of their daily habits. They looked for structured programs, professional guidance, and commercial answers. They believed that fitness required equipment, facilities, and instruction. They believed that health could be purchased. This chapter reveals the truth behind that belief. Gym memberships are not inherently bad. They are simply misunderstood. They are tools, not solutions. They are environments, not habits. They are opportunities, not guarantees. The fitness industry grew because people wanted results without addressing the causes of their weight gain. The industry offered access, but it could not provide discipline. When the dripping faucet of fees, gear, gas, and supplements is added up, the real cost of a $30 membership often reaches $150 a month. And for many people, that money buys nothing but guilt. The next chapter will examine another common response to the obesity crisis: the rise of home gym equipment. It will show how treadmills, bikes, and machines became household items and how they often ended up unused. It will reveal how the search for convenience extended into the home and how the promise of easy fitness became another commercial trap. Chapter 9: The Home Gym Graveyard: Equipment, Clutter, and the Myth of Convenience. As gym memberships expanded in the 1980s and beyond, another trend emerged alongside them. Americans began purchasing home gym equipment in record numbers. Treadmills, stationary bikes, rowing machines, weight benches, resistance systems, and multifunction workout stations entered millions of homes. The promise was simple and appealing: avoid the gym, avoid the crowds, avoid the commuting, and exercise in the comfort of your own home. It sounded efficient, practical, and convenient. It was also one of the most misleading promises in the history of modern fitness. The rise of home gym equipment was driven by the same forces that created the obesity boom. Portions were increasing, fast food was expanding, soda consumption was rising, daily movement was declining. People felt the effects of these changes and wanted solutions. They wanted to lose weight, regain energy, and improve their health. They wanted results without the inconvenience of travel or the pressure of a gym environment. Home equipment offered a simple answer: buy this machine, and your problems will be solved. The marketing was powerful. Advertisements showed toned bodies, smiling faces, and effortless workouts. They promised quick results, minimal effort, and dramatic transformations. They presented fitness as something that could be achieved through ownership rather than discipline. The message was clear: the machine would do the work, and the customer would enjoy the benefits. This message appealed to a nation that was becoming increasingly dependent on convenience. However, the reality of home gym equipment was very different. The machines were expensive, heavy, and difficult to assemble. They required space, maintenance, and consistent use. They demanded discipline, routine, and effort. They did not solve the underlying habits that caused weight gain. They did not create portion control. They did not create consistency. They provided access, but they did not provide motivation. For many households, home gym equipment quickly became clutter. Treadmills turned into coat racks. Stationary bikes became laundry hangers. Weight benches collected dust. Multifunction machines sat unused in basements, garages, and spare rooms. The equipment remained, but the effort did not. The purchase created the illusion of progress, but not the practice of it. The machine became a symbol of good intentions rather than a tool for transformation. The home gym graveyard became a common feature of American households. People felt guilty for not using the equipment. They felt frustrated by the lack of results. They felt overwhelmed by the demands of daily life. The machine did not fit into their routines. It did not match their schedules. It did not align with their habits. It required a level of commitment that most people could not sustain. The equipment became a reminder of failure rather than a path to success. The problem was not the equipment itself. The problem was the belief that convenience could replace discipline. The problem was the assumption that owning a machine would create motivation. The problem was the idea that fitness could be purchased. Home gym equipment offered a shortcut, but shortcuts do not create lasting habits. They create temporary enthusiasm followed by long periods of inactivity. The rise of home gym equipment reflects a larger cultural pattern. As the environment became less supportive of natural health, people sought solutions that did not require major changes to their routines. They wanted to lose weight without adjusting their portions. They wanted to improve their health without increasing their daily movement. They wanted results without altering the habits that caused the problem. The fitness industry responded by selling products that promised convenience, not discipline. The home gym graveyard also reveals an important truth about human behavior. People do not struggle because they lack equipment. They struggle because they lack consistency. They struggle because their environment encourages overeating, inactivity, and convenience. They struggle because modern life makes it easy to avoid movement and difficult to maintain discipline. Machines cannot solve these challenges. Only habits can. Home gym equipment can be effective for people who already possess discipline, routine, and commitment. For those individuals, the equipment is a tool that supports an existing lifestyle. For everyone else, it becomes clutter. It becomes a purchase made in a moment of motivation and abandoned in the reality of daily life. It becomes part of the cycle of trying, failing, and trying again. The home gym graveyard is not a failure of the customer. It is a failure of the promise. It is the result of an industry that sells convenience in a world that requires discipline. It is the result of a culture that encourages consumption rather than consistency. It is the result of an environment that makes health difficult and convenience easy. This chapter marks the end of the fitness industry's promises and the beginning of the deeper issues that drive weight gain. The next chapters will examine the diet industry, the yo-yo effect, the psychology of overeating, and the eating disorders that emerge when people attempt to navigate a world filled with excess. They will reveal how the search for solutions became a business, and how the real answer has always been simple: portion control, daily movement, and consistency. Chapter 10: The Diet Industry and the Yo-Yo Effect. As the 1980s obesity boom accelerated, Americans searched for solutions. Fast food had expanded, portion sizes had increased, soda consumption had risen, and daily movement had declined. People felt the consequences of these changes. They gained weight, lost energy, and struggled with their health. They wanted answers, and they wanted them quickly. The diet industry responded with a promise that seemed simple and appealing: follow this plan, buy this product, and lose weight. It was a promise that would become one of the most profitable business models in modern history. The diet industry did not begin as a health movement. It began as a commercial opportunity. Companies recognized that people were desperate for solutions. They understood that weight loss was not only a physical struggle, but an emotional one. They marketed hope, transformation, and control. They sold the idea that weight loss could be achieved through specific foods, strict rules, or specialized products. They presented dieting as a structured path to success. During the 1980s, 1990s, and early 2000s, famous diets became household brands. The Atkins diet promised rapid weight loss through extreme carbohydrate restriction. The South Beach diet promoted a phased approach that eliminated entire food groups. The Scarsdale diet offered a rigid, low-calorie plan that was difficult to sustain. The Zone diet claimed to balance hormones through precise macronutrient ratios. Each diet presented itself as the breakthrough that others had failed to deliver. Each diet produced temporary results followed by long-term disappointment. Meal replacement programs also gained popularity. Slim Fast encouraged people to replace 2 meals a day with shakes. Other companies sold bars, powders, and prepackaged meals that promised convenience and rapid results. These products created the illusion of simplicity. They suggested that weight loss could be achieved by purchasing the right items rather than developing sustainable habits. They offered structure, but not independence. Diet clinics expanded across the country. Jenny Craig offered weekly weigh-ins, prepackaged meals, and personal consultants. LA Weight Loss promoted structured programs and high-pressure sales tactics. Medical weight loss clinic and similar centers presented themselves as doctor-supervised solutions, even when the medical involvement was minimal. These clinics sold supplements, injections, appetite suppressants, and meal plans. They created an environment that appeared scientific, however, operated as a business. The common thread among these programs was restriction. They required people to eat far less than their bodies needed. They eliminated food groups, imposed strict rules, or relied on products that replaced real meals. They encouraged rapid weight loss rather than gradual, sustainable change. They focused on short-term results rather than long-term habits. This approach created the yo-yo effect. The yo-yo effect was predictable. People would lose weight quickly, feel encouraged, and believe they had found the solution. Then the diet would become difficult to maintain. Hunger would increase, energy would decline, cravings would intensify, social situations would become challenging, life would interfere. Eventually, the person would return to their normal eating habits. The weight would return, often with additional pounds. The cycle would begin again. The yo-yo effect was not a failure of the individual. It was the predictable outcome of the diet itself. Extreme restriction slows a person's metabolism. The body responds to starvation by conserving energy. When normal eating resumes, the body stores more fat in preparation for the next period of restriction. This biological response makes weight regain almost inevitable. The diet industry understood this pattern, even if customers did not. The cycle of losing and regaining weight created repeat customers. People blamed themselves for failure, not the diet. They believed they lacked discipline, willpower, or motivation. They returned to the industry for another plan, another product, or another promise. The industry profited from this cycle. It sold solutions that were designed to fail. It sold hope that would eventually turn into frustration. It sold the illusion of control. The emotional toll of dieting was significant. People felt guilt when they broke the rules. They felt shame when they regained weight. They felt pressure to succeed and feared failure. They compared themselves to others who appeared to have better results. They internalized the belief that weight loss required suffering, restriction, and constant effort. The diet industry reinforced these beliefs through marketing that emphasized discipline, sacrifice, and transformation. The physical consequences were equally significant. Repeated cycles of weight loss and weight gain increased the risk of metabolic issues, hormonal imbalances, and long-term weight gain. The body became more efficient at storing fat and less efficient at burning it. The cycle made future weight loss more difficult. The diet industry did not address these consequences. It offered new products instead. The truth is simple. Diets fail because they are designed to fail. They do not address the environment that causes weight gain. They do not address portion sizes, daily movement, or long-term habits. They do not teach people how to eat in a sustainable way. They offer temporary solutions to a permanent problem. They create dependency rather than independence. The diet industry thrives because people believe that weight loss requires complexity. They believe that they need special foods, strict rules, or professional guidance. They believe that they cannot trust themselves. The industry reinforces these beliefs by presenting dieting as a structured system that must be followed precisely. It discourages people from relying on their own judgment, instincts, or experience. The yo-yo effect is not a personal failure. It is the predictable outcome of an industry that profits from repeated attempts. It is the result of a culture that encourages excess and then sells restriction as the solution. It is the consequence of an environment that makes healthy living difficult and dieting seem necessary. This chapter marks the beginning of the deeper issues that drive weight gain. The next chapters will examine the psychology of overeating, the emotional triggers that influence eating habits, and the eating disorders that emerge when people attempt to navigate a world filled with excess. They will show how the search for solutions became a cycle of frustration and how the real answer has always been found in small, consistent choices, not in diets, contracts, or money pits. Chapter 11. The Psychology of Overeating. The modern obesity crisis cannot be understood through food alone. It cannot be explained solely by portion sizes, fast food, soda, or convenience. These factors created the environment, but the human mind determines how people respond to that environment. The psychology of overeating is the missing link between the rise of processed food and the struggle to maintain a healthy weight. It explains why people eat when they are not hungry, why they return to old habits after dieting, and why the modern world makes self-control more difficult than ever before. Human beings are not designed for abundance. For most of human history, food was scarce, unpredictable, and difficult to obtain. The body evolved to seek calories, store fat, and respond strongly to sugar, salt, and fat. These instincts were essential for survival. In the modern world, they have become liabilities. The environment now offers unlimited access to foods that trigger the brain's reward system. The body still reacts as if scarcity is possible, even when abundance is constant. Overeating often begins with emotional triggers rather than physical hunger. Stress, boredom, loneliness, anxiety, and fatigue can all influence eating habits. Food becomes a coping mechanism, a distraction, or a source of comfort. The act of eating releases dopamine, a neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and reward. This creates a temporary sense of relief, followed by guilt or regret. The cycle repeats, reinforcing the habit. Modern life intensifies these triggers. Work demands, financial pressure, social expectations, and constant stimulation create chronic stress. People seek quick relief, and food provides it. The convenience of processed snacks, fast food, and sugary beverages makes emotional eating easy. The environment encourages immediate gratification rather than long-term discipline. The mind responds accordingly. Portion sizes also influence psychology. When large portions become normal, the brain adjusts its expectations. People begin to view excessive amounts of food as appropriate. They lose the ability to recognize true hunger and fullness. They eat because the food is available, not because the body needs it. This disconnect between physical hunger and psychological desire is one of the core drivers of overeating. Marketing plays a significant role in shaping these behaviors. Advertisements promote food as entertainment, comfort, and reward. They associate eating with happiness, celebration, and social connection. They encourage people to indulge, treat themselves, and satisfy cravings. These messages influence the subconscious mind, creating associations that are difficult to break. The food industry understands these psychological triggers and uses them to increase consumption. The psychology of overeating is also influenced by habit. Eating patterns become automatic over time. People eat at certain times, in certain places, or in response to certain emotions. These habits operate below conscious awareness. They are triggered by cues in the environment, such as watching television, driving past a fast food restaurant, or feeling stressed after work. Breaking these habits requires awareness, intention, and consistency. Dieting can worsen these psychological challenges. Restrictive diets create a sense of deprivation. They increase cravings, intensify hunger, and elevate stress. The mind becomes preoccupied with food. When the diet ends, the psychological pressure releases, and overeating often follows. This rebound effect contributes to the yo-yo cycle and reinforces the belief that weight loss is difficult or impossible. Social factors also influence overeating. People eat more in groups than when alone. They eat more when food is free, discounted, or presented in large quantities. They eat more during celebrations, holidays, and social gatherings. The presence of others can override internal cues of hunger and fullness. Social pressure, cultural norms, and shared habits all contribute to increased consumption. The modern environment is designed to encourage overeating. Food is available everywhere. It is inexpensive, convenient, and heavily marketed. It is engineered to be hyper-palatable, combining sugar, salt, and fat in ways that stimulate the brain's reward system. The mind is constantly exposed to cues that trigger cravings. The body responds instinctively, even when the person is not physically hungry. Understanding the psychology of overeating is essential because it reveals that weight gain is not a moral failure. It is not a lack of discipline or willpower. It is a natural response to an environment that overwhelms the brain's reward system. It is the result of emotional triggers, habitual patterns, and biological instincts. It is the consequence of a world that encourages consumption and discourages moderation. The solution is not restriction, punishment, or guilt. It is awareness. It is understanding the triggers, habits, and emotions that influence eating. It recognizes the difference between physical hunger and psychological desire. It is learning to respond to emotions without using food as a coping mechanism. It is developing habits that support long-term health rather than short-term relief. This chapter marks the transition from external factors to internal ones. The next chapters will examine the eating disorders that emerge when people attempt to navigate a world filled with excess, the emotional consequences of dieting, and the simple truth that has been present throughout this book. Portion control, daily movement, and consistency remain the foundation of sustainable health. Chapter 12: Eating Disorders in a World of Excess. The modern world has created an environment where overeating is easy, dieting is common, and weight control is a constant struggle. This environment does not simply influence habits. It affects mental health. It shapes self-image, emotional stability, and the relationship people have with food. Eating disorders do not arise from weakness or vanity. They arise from a culture that encourages excess, punishes weight gain, and promotes extreme solutions. They are the predictable outcome of a world that makes healthy living difficult and emotional eating easy. Eating disorders exist on a spectrum. They are not limited to the severe cases described in medical textbooks. They include patterns of behavior that millions of people experience without recognizing them as disorders. They include chronic dieting, binge eating, emotional eating, and cycles of guilt and restriction. They include the belief that food is the enemy, that hunger is a failure, and that weight defines worth. These beliefs are reinforced by the environment, the diet industry, and the pressures of modern life. Binge eating disorder is one of the most common eating disorders in the United States. It involves consuming large amounts of food in a short period, often in response to emotional triggers rather than physical hunger. People who binge eat often feel out of control during the episode and experience guilt or shame afterward. This pattern is not a lack of discipline. It is a response to stress, anxiety, and the availability of highly palatable foods. The modern environment encourages this behavior by offering constant access to foods engineered to trigger the brain's reward system. Restrictive eating disorders, such as anorexia and orthorexia, arise from a different set of pressures. These disorders involve extreme control, fear of weight gain, and an obsession with clean or perfect eating. They are often triggered by dieting, social pressure, or the belief that health requires strict rules. The diet industry reinforces these beliefs by promoting restriction as discipline and thinness as success. People who develop restrictive disorders are not seeking vanity. They are seeking control in a world that feels overwhelming. Bulimia combines elements of both binge eating and restriction. It involves cycles of overeating followed by compensatory behaviors such as purging, fasting, or excessive exercise. Bulimia is often hidden, driven by shame and fear of judgment. It reflects the internal conflict between the desire for comfort and the pressure to maintain a certain appearance. The modern world intensifies this conflict by promoting indulgence and perfection simultaneously. There are also less recognized disorders that affect millions of people. Emotional eating occurs when food is used to manage stress, sadness, boredom, or anxiety. Night eating syndrome involves consuming large amounts of food late at night, often without hunger. Compulsive snacking, grazing, and mindless eating are common in environments where food is constantly available. These behaviors may not meet clinical definitions, but they create real consequences for health and well-being. The rise in eating disorders is not accidental. It is the result of conflicting messages. The food industry encourages people to indulge, treat themselves, and consume more. The diet industry encourages people to restrict, punish themselves, and consume less. The culture encourages people to celebrate with food, cope with food, and socialize with food. At the same time, it encourages them to feel guilty about eating, ashamed of weight gain, and responsible for achieving unrealistic body standards. These contradictions create confusion, stress, and emotional conflict. Social media intensifies these pressures. Images of idealized bodies, filtered faces, and curated lifestyles create unrealistic expectations. People compare themselves to images that do not reflect reality. They internalize the belief that they must appear a certain way to be accepted. They feel pressure to diet, exercise excessively, or hide their eating habits. The constant exposure to perfection creates dissatisfaction with normal, healthy bodies. Eating disorders also arise from the belief that weight defines worth. This belief is reinforced by comments from family, friends, and society. Children learn early that thinness is praised and weight gain is criticized. Adults internalize these messages and carry them throughout life. The fear of judgment becomes a powerful force that shapes eating habits, exercise routines, and self-image. The result is a relationship with food that is driven by fear rather than nourishment. The truth is simple. Eating disorders are not about food. They are about emotion, identity, and control. They are responses to stress, pressure, and an environment that overwhelms the mind. They are attempting to cope with feelings that have no other outlet. They are the result of a world that encourages extremes rather than balance. Understanding eating disorders is essential because it reveals the deeper challenges behind weight control. It shows that the struggle is not only physical, but emotional and psychological. It shows that the solution is not restriction, punishment, or guilt. It is awareness, compassion, and balance. It is learning to recognize emotional triggers, challenge harmful beliefs, and develop a healthy relationship with food. This chapter marks the final step before the book transitions into the solution. The next chapters will reveal the simple truth that has been present throughout this book. Portion control, daily movement, and consistency remain the foundation of sustainable health. They will show how to break the cycle of overeating, dieting, and emotional conflict. They will show how to build habits that support long-term well-being rather than short-term results. Chapter 13. The Simple Truth. Move more, eat less. After more than a century of changing food habits, expanding fast food chains, rising portion sizes, declining daily movement, and the growth of the diet and fitness industries, the solution to weight control remains the same as it has always been. It is not complicated, not expensive. It does not require programs, products, or professional supervision. It requires two principles that have been present throughout this book: daily movement and portion control. Daily movement is essential. The human body is designed to move. For most of human history, movement was unavoidable. People walked, lifted, carried, and worked physically. Even in the early 20th century, daily life required effort. Kids played outside while adults performed manual tasks. Movement was built into the environment. Today, movement must be intentional. Technology has reduced the need for physical effort. Cars, screens, and convenience have replaced natural activity. Daily movement does not require gym memberships, specialized equipment, or structured workouts. It requires consistency. It means walking, stretching, lifting, and using the body throughout the day. It can be as simple as walking around the block, stretching in the morning, doing a few push-ups against the counter, putting on music and dancing in the living room, or stepping outside for a few minutes of fresh air and movement. Activity does not need to be formal or intense. It only needs to be consistent. The body responds to any movement, no matter how small, because movement is what it was designed for. Movement helps the body use the calories it already has. Movement keeps the metabolism alive. Movement makes portion control easier. Portion control is not starvation. It is not restriction. It is not punishment. It is the practice of eating the amount of food the body needs to remain healthy. It is the foundation of every naturally thin culture in human history. It is the reason Americans remained healthy for decades, even as sugar, soda, candy, and fast food became more common. People ate modest portions, moved their bodies, and lived in an environment that supported balance. The modern world has made portion control more difficult. Portions have increased dramatically. Restaurants serve oversized meals. Fast food chains promote value through quantity. Grocery stores sell larger packages. Snacks are designed to be consumed mindlessly. The environment encourages overeating, and the body responds instinctively. Portion control requires awareness in a world that encourages excess. The diet industry complicates these simple truths. It promotes the idea that weight loss requires strict rules, special foods, or professional guidance. It encourages people to believe that they cannot trust themselves. It presents dieting as a structured system that must be followed precisely. These messages create confusion and dependency. They distract from the reality that sustainable health does not require complexity. The fitness industry also contributes to this confusion. It promotes the belief that exercise must be intense, structured, or performed in a gym. It encourages people to associate fitness with equipment, classes, and memberships. It presents physical activity as a specialized practice rather than a natural part of daily life. This perspective discourages people who cannot commit to a gym lifestyle. It creates the impression that fitness is inaccessible. The truth is simple. Sustainable health is built on habits, not programs. It is built on consistency, not intensity. It is built on moderation, not restriction. It is built on daily choices, not temporary efforts. Daily movement and portion control are the foundation of long-term weight management. They are the habits that supported health for generations before the modern environment changed. Portion control requires awareness of hunger and fullness. It requires recognizing emotional triggers and separating them from physical needs. It requires eating slowly, choosing reasonable amounts, and stopping when satisfied. It requires understanding that the body does not need large portions to function. It requires trust in the body's signals rather than external rules. Daily movement requires intention. It requires choosing to walk when possible, to stand rather than sit, to stretch rather than remain still, and to incorporate physical activity into daily routines. It requires viewing movement as a natural part of life rather than a chore. It requires consistency rather than intensity. The body responds to regular movement with improved health, regardless of the form it takes. These principles are not new. They are the same principles taught by Dr. John Harvey Kellogg in the early days of the American health movement. Simple food, light eating, and daily activity. They are the same principles that supported health in the eras of Jack LaLanne, Vic Tanny, and Arnold Schwarzenegger. They are the same principles that kept Americans healthy before the rise of supersizing, convenience culture, and sedentary lifestyles. They are the same principles that remain effective today, despite the complexity of the modern world. The challenge is not understanding these principles. The challenge is applying them in an environment that encourages the opposite. The modern world promotes excess, convenience, and inactivity. It rewards speed, indulgence, and comfort. It discourages moderation, patience, and effort. Daily movement and portion control require intention in a world that does not support them naturally. The solution is not perfection. It is consistency. It is choosing reasonable portions most of the time. It is moving the body every day. It is recognizing emotional triggers and responding to them without using food as a coping mechanism. It is building habits that support long-term health rather than relying on temporary solutions. It is understanding that the body thrives on balance, not extremes. This chapter reveals the simple truth that has been present throughout this book. The path to sustainable health is not found in diets, programs, or products. It is found in daily habits that align with the body's natural design. Daily movement and portion control remain the foundation of weight management, regardless of trends, industries, or cultural changes. They are the principles that supported health in the past, and they are the principles that will support health in the future. Chapter 14: Saving Money by Eating Real Food. Most people do not realize how much money they burn chasing weight loss. The diet industry, the gym industry, and the equipment industry. They all survive because people keep spending and restarting. My plan stops all of that. When you move more, eat less, and eat real food, you do not just get healthier, you save money. A lot of it. You save money by not buying gym memberships. Gyms are built on the idea that you'll sign up, go for 2 weeks, and keep paying for the next 6 months. Most people don't even use the membership they're paying for. My plan costs $0. Walking is free. Moving your body is free. You do not need a building, a contract, or a monthly bill to get healthy. You save money by not buying home equipment, treadmills, ellipticals, Bowflex machines, all expensive dust collectors. People buy them with good intentions, use them twice, and then they become coat racks. My plan uses your legs, your body, and your daily routine. No equipment, no payments, no clutter. You save money by not buying diet programs. The diet industry is a billion-dollar trap. Meal plans, shakes, subscriptions, apps, all designed to keep you spending. They want you to fail so you come back and buy more. My plan requires no products, no subscriptions, and no gimmicks. Just movement, real food, and portion control. You save money by not yo-yoing. Yo-yo dieting is expensive. Every time people start over, they spend money again. New foods, new programs, new memberships, new equipment. My plan stops that cycle. When you move daily and eat real food, you do not restart, you just live. You save money by eating real food. Vegetables, fruit, potatoes, oatmeal, cereal. These foods are cheap and last. A 10-pound bag of potatoes feeds you for days. A cheap box of oatmeal covers a week of breakfast. An inexpensive bag of frozen vegetables gives you multiple meals. Compare that to the now high-priced fast food meals, costly energy drinks, or a rich candy bar that really is not satisfying. Real food stretches. Junk food drains. You save money by eating less. When you eat real food, you naturally eat less. Your cravings drop. Your binge cycles stop. Your impulse spending disappears. You are not running out for snacks, fast food, or sugar hits. Portion control becomes financial control. This chapter reinforces the entire philosophy. Simple works, cheap works, consistent works. You don't need to spend money to get healthy. You need to move more, eat less, and eat real food. Your wallet gets healthier at the same time your body does. Chapter 15. Building a Sustainable Lifestyle. The principles of daily movement and portion control are simple, but simplicity does not guarantee ease. The modern world is filled with distractions, temptations, and pressures that make healthy living difficult. Building a sustainable lifestyle requires intention, awareness, and consistency. It requires habits that can be maintained in the real world, not temporary efforts that collapse under stress. This chapter provides a framework for creating a lifestyle that supports long-term health without relying on diets, programs, or extreme routines. The body was never designed for long periods of sitting, screens, or stillness. It functions best when it is used throughout the day. Movement keeps metabolism active, supports mental clarity, and prevents the slow weight gain that comes from inactivity. This does not require workouts, routines, or equipment. It simply means using the body, standing more, walking more, bending, lifting, stretching, and choosing motion over convenience whenever possible. Movement keeps the body alive, responsive, and ready to regulate appetite naturally. Portion control is not punishment. It is balanced living. It is about alignment. It is the practice of giving the body what it needs, no more and no less. It is the foundation of long-term weight management. A sustainable lifestyle begins with understanding the body's needs. The body does not require large portions to function. It does not require constant snacking, oversized meals, or excessive calories. It requires balanced nutrition made of real foods, smaller portions, fewer processed foods, and consistency. The first step in building a sustainable lifestyle is awareness. People must understand their habits, triggers, and routines. They must recognize when they eat out of hunger and when they eat out of emotion. They must identify the situations that lead to overeating, such as stress, boredom, or social pressure. Awareness creates the foundation for change. Without awareness, habits remain automatic and unexamined. The second step is intentionality. People must make conscious choices about how they move and what they eat. They must choose to move their bodies, even when convenience encourages inactivity. They must choose reasonable portions, even when larger portions are available. Intentionality does not require perfection. It requires consistent effort. It requires movement over stillness and choosing balance over excess. The third step is environment. The environment shapes behavior more than willpower does. A sustainable lifestyle requires an environment that supports healthy choices. This includes creating spaces that encourage movement, keeping the body active throughout the day, and reducing the conveniences that promote stillness. It also means keeping reasonable foods at home, limiting oversized portions, and reducing access to highly processed snacks. Small changes in the environment can produce significant changes in behavior. The goal is to make healthy choices easier and unhealthy choices less automatic. The fourth step is routine. Habits are formed through repetition. A sustainable lifestyle requires routines that support daily movement and portion control. This may include planned walks, stretching breaks, simple strength exercises, and regular meal times. Routines reduce the need for decision-making. They create stability in a world filled with distractions. They allow healthy habits to become automatic rather than forced. The fifth step is flexibility. A sustainable lifestyle must adapt to real life. It must accommodate holidays, celebrations, stress, travel, and unexpected events. It must allow for occasional indulgence without guilt or overreaction. Flexibility prevents an all-or-nothing mindset that leads to cycles of restriction and overeating. It allows people to maintain balance even when life becomes unpredictable. The sixth step is patience. Sustainable change does not happen quickly. It requires time, consistency, and persistence. The body responds gradually to new habits. Weight loss, improved energy, and better health develop over weeks and months, not days. Patience prevents frustration and discouragement. It reinforces the understanding that the goal is long-term health, not rapid transformation. The seventh step is self-compassion. People often judge themselves harshly for their eating habits, weight, or perceived failures. This judgment creates stress, guilt, and emotional eating. A sustainable lifestyle requires compassion. It requires understanding that setbacks are normal, that progress is not linear, and that perfection is not required. Self-compassion supports resilience, which is essential for long-term success. A sustainable lifestyle does not require special foods, strict rules, or professional supervision. It requires balance. It requires awareness, intention, environment, routine, flexibility, patience, and compassion. These principles support long-term health in a world that encourages excess and convenience. They allow people to maintain daily movement and portion control without relying on diets or programs or memberships. The truth is simple. The body thrives on consistency, moderation, and movement. A sustainable lifestyle aligns with these needs. It supports health without creating stress. It provides structure without restriction. It allows people to live fully while maintaining balance. It is the lifestyle that supported health for generations before the modern environment changed, and it remains effective today. This chapter prepares the reader for the final section of the book, where the principles of daily movement and portion control are brought together into a clear, practical approach. The next chapter will show how to apply these principles in daily life, how to maintain them over time, and how to break free from the cycles of dieting, overeating, and frustration that dominate the modern world. Chapter 16. Applying these principles in daily life. Understanding daily movement and portion control is important, but understanding alone does not create change. The modern world is filled with pressures, distractions, and habits that make healthy living difficult. Applying these principles in daily life requires practical strategies that fit into real schedules, real responsibilities, and real environments. It requires a plan that is simple enough to follow consistently and flexible enough to survive the challenges of everyday life. The first step in applying these principles is recognizing that small changes matter. People often believe that health requires dramatic transformation, strict routines, or intense effort. This belief leads to frustration and abandonment. Sustainable change begins with small, manageable adjustments. Adding a short walk to the day, reducing portion sizes slightly, or choosing water instead of soda can create meaningful progress over time. Small changes accumulate. They build momentum. They create habits that last. The second step is creating structure without rigidity. Structure provides stability, but rigidity creates stress. A sustainable lifestyle includes regular meal times, planned movement, and predictable routines. It does not require perfection. It allows for flexibility when life becomes busy, stressful, or unpredictable. Structure supports consistency. Rigidity leads to burnout. The goal is balance, not control. The third step is integrating movement into daily routines. Many people believe that exercise must be intense or structured to be effective. This belief discourages consistency. Daily movement can be simple: walking, stretching, lifting household items, taking stairs, or performing short bursts of activity throughout the day all support health. The body responds to movement, not to the environment in which it occurs. Consistency matters more than intensity. The fourth step is simplifying food choices. The modern food environment offers endless options, many of which are engineered to encourage overeating. Simplifying meals reduces decision fatigue and supports portion control. This may include preparing basic meals at home, choosing whole foods more often, and limiting access to oversized portions. It does not require eliminating favorite foods. It requires moderation. It requires awareness of quantity rather than obsession with ingredients. The fifth step is managing emotional triggers. Emotional eating is one of the most common barriers to portion control. Stress, boredom, loneliness, and fatigue can all influence eating habits. Many times when someone feels this way, the body is not asking for food at all. It is asking for water. Mild dehydration often feels like hunger. Applying the principles requires recognizing these triggers and developing alternative responses. This may include taking a walk, practicing deep breathing, engaging in a hobby, drinking a glass of water, or simply pausing before eating. The goal is not to eliminate emotion, it is to separate emotion from eating. The sixth step is preparing for challenging situations. Social events, holidays, travel, and stressful periods can disrupt routines. Planning ahead reduces the impact of these disruptions. This may include eating a reasonable meal before attending an event, choosing smaller portions, or incorporating movement into travel days. Preparation does not require restriction. It requires awareness and intention. The seventh step is monitoring progress without obsession. Tracking habits, portion sizes, or movement can provide valuable insight. It can reveal patterns, highlight progress, and identify areas for improvement. However, monitoring should not become a source of stress. The goal is awareness, not perfection. Progress is measured over weeks and months, not days. The eighth step is building an environment that supports success. The environment influences behavior more than willpower does. Keeping reasonable foods at home, limiting access to oversized portions, reducing exposure to constant snacking, and creating spaces that encourage movement all support the principles of daily movement and portion control. The environment should make healthy choices easier and unhealthy choices less automatic. The ninth step is accepting that setbacks are normal. No one maintains perfect habits. Life includes stress, celebrations, illness, and unexpected events. Setbacks do not erase progress. They are part of the process. The key is returning to the principles without guilt or self-criticism. Consistency over time matters more than temporary lapses. The 10th step is focusing on identity rather than effort. People who maintain healthy habits long-term do not rely on motivation. They view themselves as individuals who practice daily movement and portion control. Their habits become part of their identity. They do not negotiate with themselves. They do not rely on willpower. They act in alignment with who they believe they are. Identity creates consistency. Applying the principles of daily movement and portion control does not require perfection, intensity, or complexity. It requires awareness, intention, and consistency. It requires habits that fit into real life. It requires a mindset that values balance over extremes. The modern world encourages excess, convenience, and inactivity. A sustainable lifestyle requires choosing movement, moderation, and awareness in the face of these pressures. This chapter brings the reader to the final stage of the book. The next chapter will show how to maintain these habits long-term, how to avoid returning to old patterns, and how to build a life that supports health naturally rather than through force or restriction. It will reveal how to live in a world of abundance without being controlled by it. Chapter 17. Maintaining the lifestyle for life. Building a sustainable lifestyle is an important achievement, but maintaining it over the long term is the true challenge. The modern world does not support moderation. It encourages excess, convenience, and inactivity. It promotes large portions, constant snacking, and emotional eating. It rewards speed and comfort rather than patience and discipline. Maintaining a healthy lifestyle requires intention, awareness, and resilience. It requires habits that can withstand stress, change, and the pressures of daily life. The first principle of long-term maintenance is consistency. Consistency does not mean perfection. It means returning to the core habits of daily movement and portion control regardless of temporary setbacks. Life will include stress, illness, celebrations, travel, and unexpected events. These moments may disrupt routines, but they do not erase progress. Consistency is the practice of returning to balance after imbalance. It is the understanding that long-term success is built on repeated effort, not flawless execution. The second principle is identity. People who maintain healthy habits long-term do not rely on motivation. They view themselves as individuals who practice daily movement and portion control. Their habits become part of their identity. They do not negotiate with themselves. They do not rely on willpower. They act in alignment with who they believe they are. Identity creates stability. It transforms habits from tasks into natural behaviors. The third principle is environment. The environment influences behavior more than intention does. Maintaining a healthy lifestyle requires an environment that supports healthy choices. This may include keeping reasonable foods at home, limiting access to oversized portions, reducing exposure to constant snacking, and creating spaces that encourage movement. The environment should make healthy choices easier and unhealthy choices less automatic. Small adjustments can produce significant long-term benefits. The fourth principle is emotional awareness. Emotional eating is one of the most common reasons people return to old habits. Stress, boredom, loneliness, and fatigue can all influence eating behavior. Maintaining a healthy lifestyle requires recognizing these triggers and responding to them without using food as a coping mechanism. This may include walking, stretching, talking to someone, having a glass of water, or engaging in a hobby. Emotional awareness prevents temporary feelings from becoming long-term setbacks. The fifth principle is flexibility. A rigid lifestyle is not sustainable. People who maintain healthy habits allow for occasional indulgence without guilt or overreaction. They understand that balance includes enjoyment. They do not view food as the enemy. They do not punish themselves for eating something outside their routine. Flexibility prevents an all-or-nothing mindset that leads to cycles of restriction and overeating. It allows people to maintain balance even when life becomes unpredictable. The sixth principle is routine. Routines reduce the need for decision-making. They create stability in a world filled with distractions. Maintaining a healthy lifestyle requires routines that support daily movement and portion control. This may include regular meal times, planned walks, stretching breaks, or simple strength exercises. Routines allow healthy habits to become automatic rather than forced. The seventh principle is patience. Long-term maintenance requires understanding that progress is gradual. The body responds slowly to new habits. Weight may fluctuate, energy may vary, life may interfere. Patience prevents frustration and discouragement. It reinforces the understanding that the goal is long-term health, not rapid transformation. Patience supports resilience. The eighth principle is self-compassion. People often judge themselves harshly for setbacks, weight fluctuations, or perceived failures. This judgment creates stress, guilt, and emotional eating. Maintaining a healthy lifestyle requires compassion. It requires understanding that setbacks are normal, that progress is not linear, and that perfection is not required. Self-compassion supports long-term consistency. The ninth principle is awareness of triggers. Certain environments, situations, or emotions can lead to overeating or inactivity. Maintaining a healthy lifestyle requires recognizing these triggers and preparing for them. This may include planning meals, avoiding oversized portions, or incorporating movement into stressful days. Awareness allows people to respond intentionally rather than react automatically. The 10th principle is long-term perspective. Maintaining a healthy lifestyle is not a temporary effort. It is a lifelong practice. It requires understanding that health is not a destination. It is a process. It is the result of daily choices that align with the body's natural design. It is the understanding that daily movement and portion control remain effective regardless of trends, industries, or cultural changes. The modern world will continue to promote excess, convenience, and inactivity. It will continue to offer diets, programs, and products that promise quick results. It will continue to create environments that encourage overeating and discourage movement. Maintaining a healthy lifestyle requires choosing balance in the face of these pressures. It requires returning to the simple truth that has been present throughout this book. The body thrives on movement, moderation, and consistency. This chapter prepares the reader for the conclusion of the book, where the journey from the late 19th century to the modern world is brought together into a final message. The conclusion will show how the history, psychology, and environment of the past century have shaped the present, and how the simple principles of daily movement and portion control remain the foundation of sustainable health. Conclusion. Returning to balance in a world of excess. The story of modern health is not a mystery. It is a timeline. It is a sequence of changes that reshape the way people eat, move, and live. It began with the rise of sugar in the late 19th century. It continued with the introduction of soda, candy, and processed foods. It expanded with the creation of fast food, supersizing, and convenience culture. It accelerated with declining daily movement, larger portions, and the pressures of modern life. It produced industries that promised solutions but often created dependency. It shaped the psychology of eating, the rise of dieting, and the struggle to maintain balance in a world that encourages excess. Throughout this journey, one truth has remained constant. The human body has not changed. The environment has changed. Habits have changed. The expectations have changed. The pressures have changed. But the body still responds to the same principles that supported health for generations. It thrives on moderation, consistency, and movement. It struggles under excess, inactivity, and emotional stress. The body is not a problem. The environment is. This book has shown how the modern world makes healthy living difficult. It has shown how portion sizes increased, how fast food expanded, and how convenience replaced preparation. It has shown how the diet industry created cycles of restriction and regain. It has shown how the fitness industry sells access rather than discipline. It has shown how emotional triggers, habits, and social pressures influence eating. It has shown how eating disorders arise from a culture that encourages extremes. It has shown how the search for solutions became a business rather than a path to balance. Yet the solution remains simple. It is not found in programs, products, or trends. It is found in daily movement and portion control. It is found in awareness, intention, and consistency. It is found in habits that align with the body's natural design. It is found in balance rather than extremes. It is found in the understanding that health is not a temporary effort. It is a lifelong practice. Returning to balance does not require perfection. It does not require strict rules or rigid routines. It requires small, consistent choices. It requires recognizing hunger and fullness. It requires separating emotion from eating. It requires moving the body every day. It requires creating an environment that supports healthy habits. It requires patience, flexibility, and self-compassion. It requires understanding that setbacks are normal and that progress is measured over time. The modern world will continue to promote excess. It will continue to offer oversized portions, constant snacking, and convenience at every turn. It will continue to sell diets, programs, and products that promise quick results. It will continue to create environments that encourage overeating and discourage movement. Returning to balance requires choosing differently. It requires choosing moderation in a world of abundance. It requires choosing movement in a world of convenience. It requires choosing awareness in a world of distraction. The journey toward sustainable health is not about restriction. It is about alignment. It is about aligning daily habits with the body's natural needs. It is about understanding that the body thrives when given reasonable portions and consistent movement. It is about recognizing that the environment may not support these habits, but the individual can. It is about reclaiming control in a world that encourages losing it. The conclusion of this book is not an ending. It is the beginning. It is the beginning of a lifestyle that supports long-term health. It is the beginning of habits that can be maintained for life. It is the beginning of a relationship with food and movement that is based on balance rather than extremes. It is the beginning of a return to the principles that supported health long before the modern world complicated them. The simple truth remains unchanged. The body thrives on moderation, consistency, and movement. The world may change, but this truth does not. Returning to balance is not only possible, it is achievable. It begins with daily movement, portion control, and the understanding that sustainable health is built one choice at a time.